Welcome back to another episode of Infidelity Tales Lab. We're thankful for your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, The Foundation. Robert Bobby Castellano had always believed in building things to last. At 52, he'd spent 30 years constructing an empire that started with a single construction truck and grew into Castellano Holdings, a multi-million-dollar real estate development company that owned half the commercial properties in downtown Phoenix. His calloused hands and weathered face told the story of a man who'd climbed from laying concrete to signing million-dollar deals. The foundation of his success wasn't just business acumen. It was his ability to read people, to see their weaknesses before they knew they had them. His late father, Antonio, had taught him that lesson when Bobby was 16. Trust is earned in drops and lost in buckets. Mijo. Remember who fills your bucket and who drains it. Bobby had met Linda Grayson 25 years ago at a charity auction. She was 28 then, a stunning blonde with emerald eyes and the kind of smile that could disarm a hostile takeover. She worked as an interior designer for upscale homes, and Bobby had hired her to decorate his newly purchased mansion in Scottsdale. What started as a professional relationship bloomed into romance, then marriage within 18 months. Linda came from old Phoenix money. Her grandfather had been one of the city's first major real estate developers. But by the time Bobby met her, the Grayson fortune had dwindled to a trust fund and a reputation. Linda craved the lifestyle she'd grown up with, and Bobby was more than willing to provide it. He loved her passion, her eye for beauty, and the way she made his sterile bachelor existence feel like a home. Their children came quickly. Travis was born first, now 23 and fresh out of Arizona State with a business degree. Emma followed 2 years later, 21, and studying art history at USC. Bobby had given them everything: private schools, European vacations, cars on their 16th birthdays, and college educations without student loans. He'd worked 70-hour weeks to ensure they never wanted for anything. Travis had always been Linda's favorite. Where Emma inherited Bobby's olive complexion and dark eyes, Travis was all Linda, blonde, fair, with her easy charm and social grace. Bobby had tried to bond with his son through work, bringing him to construction sites and teaching him the business. But Travis seemed more interested in the glamorous side of real estate, the networking events, the expensive dinners, the social status, than the gritty work of actually building something. Emma, meanwhile, had grown distant over the past few years. College had changed her, filling her head with ideas about privilege and social justice that seemed to put her at odds with everything Bobby had worked to achieve. Their last real conversation had ended in an argument about wealth inequality and exploiting workers, accusations that cut deeper than she probably intended. What Bobby didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that 6 months ago, Linda had reconnected with her college boyfriend, Derek Hoffman, at their 25th class reunion. Derek was now a successful plastic surgeon in Beverly Hills, recently divorced from his own wealthy wife. Where Bobby was rough around the edges despite his success, Derek was polished sophistication. Where Bobby built things with his hands, Derek sculpted faces and bodies into perfection. Their affair had started as nostalgic text messages and evolved into weekend trips when Bobby was traveling for business. Linda had convinced herself she deserved this, deserved someone who understood her background, her needs, her desires for a more refined life. She'd grown tired of Bobby's intensity, his need to control every aspect of their lives, his obsession with loyalty and betrayal that made him see enemies everywhere. Derek had been whispering in her ear for months. "You're wasted on him, Lynn. You're champagne trying to live in a beer bottle." He'd been encouraging her to file for divorce, promising her a life of country clubs and gallery openings, away from the dust and noise of construction sites. What sealed Linda's decision was Travis's suggestion 3 weeks ago. Her son, who'd been working at Castellano Holdings since graduation, had grown frustrated with his father's micromanagement and old-school methods. "Mom, Dad's never going to change. He's going to run the company into the ground with his paranoia and control issues. You could take half of everything in a divorce and live however you want." Emma, influenced by her university social justice courses, had agreed. Mom, you've been enabling Dad's toxic masculinity for 25 years. He treats his workers terribly. He treats you like property, and he thinks money solves everything. You deserve better. The plan they hatched was simple. Change the locks while Bobby was at his monthly investor meeting in Las Vegas. Film a message telling him he was no longer welcome, and present him with divorce papers upon his return. Travis had assured his mother that they had every legal right to lock him out. The house was in both their names, and Arizona was a community property state. Emma had found a feminist lawyer who specialized in liberating women from controlling relationships. None of them had truly considered what they were dealing with. Bobby Castellano wasn't just a successful businessman. He was a man who'd grown up in neighborhoods where respect was everything and betrayal was met with consequences. He'd built his empire by being smarter, more ruthless, and more patient than his competitors. He'd crushed hostile takeovers, outlasted economic downturns, and destroyed rivals who underestimated him. And now his own family had just declared war. Chapter 2. The Video. Bobby's phone buzzed as he sat in his suite at the Wynn Las Vegas, reviewing contracts for a new casino development project. The investor meeting had gone better than expected. 3 new partners had signed on, bringing the project's funding to nearly 8 figures. He was calculating profit margins when he saw the text from Linda. Watch this. We need to talk when you get home. The video opened with Linda standing in their living room, flanked by Travis and Emma. All 3 were dressed formally, as if this were a business presentation rather than a family message. Linda's voice was steady, rehearsed. Bobby, we've changed all the locks. You don't have a home anymore. Your belongings will be packed and placed in storage. Don't try to come inside. Our lawyer will be in contact. Travis stepped forward, his 23-year-old face set in what he probably thought was a tough expression. Dad, this is for the best. You've been controlling and toxic for too long. We're done enabling your behavior. Emma nodded, her art student idealism shining through. We can't be part of perpetuating harmful power structures anymore. This is us taking our power back. The video ended with Linda holding up a new set of keys. We changed all the locks. You don't have a home anymore. Bobby watched the video 3 times, his expression never changing. Then he set the phone down, poured himself 3 fingers of bourbon, and began to laugh. It started as a chuckle, then built into something that would have chilled his family had they been there to hear it. He picked up his phone and typed a response. How funny. How brave you think you are, haha. What his family didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that Bobby Castellano had been preparing for betrayal his entire adult life. Growing up in a neighborhood where family businesses were destroyed by jealous relatives and successful men were brought down by their own blood, he'd learned early to protect himself from every possible threat. The house they'd locked him out of? Legally, it belonged to a shell company Bobby had created 15 years ago, with Linda listed as a beneficiary but not an owner. The cars they drove, the credit cards they used, the bank accounts they accessed, all tied to the business in ways his family had never bothered to understand. Travis thought he understood the company because he'd worked there for 6 months, but Bobby had made sure his son only saw what he wanted him to see. The real assets, the offshore accounts, the web of companies and trusts that protected Bobby's wealth. Those are known only to Bobby and his lawyer, a shark named Felix Rodriguez who'd been handling Bobby's affairs for 20 years. Bobby had built his life like he'd built his buildings, with multiple layers of protection, redundant systems, and the ability to withstand any assault. His family had just launched an attack against what they thought was his foundation, never realizing they were only scratching the surface. He finished his bourbon and made 3 phone calls. The first was to Felix Rodriguez. They made their move. Initiate Protocol 7. The second was to Marcus Chun, his head of security at Castellano Holdings. Marcus was a former Marine who'd served 2 tours in Afghanistan before Bobby hired him away from a private military contractor. I need a full background workup on Dr. Derek Hoffman, Beverly Hills plastic surgeon. Everything. Financial, personal, professional. I want to know what he ate for breakfast and who he ate it with. The third call was to his accountant, Patricia Walsh. Patty, it's Bobby. I need you to freeze all personal accounts effective immediately. Family emergency. Transfer everything to the secure holdings we discussed. Yes, everything. By the time Bobby boarded his private jet the next morning, the war had already begun. His family just didn't know it yet. The flight from Vegas to Phoenix gave Bobby 2 hours to plan. He'd always been a chess player, thinking 5 moves ahead while his opponents were still figuring out how the pieces moved. Linda, Travis, and Emma had made their opening gambit, revealing their strategy and their allies. Now it was his turn. He thought about his father's advice. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. His family had just shown him that 25 years of love, sacrifice, and provision meant nothing to them. They saw him as a wallet, a convenience, an obstacle to their happiness. They conspired against him, planned his downfall, and celebrated his exile. Bobby felt something cold settle in his chest, something that had been dormant since his early days building the business. It was the part of him that had foreclosed on widows who couldn't pay their mortgages, that had outbid family for their dream homes only to flip them for profit, that had fired entire crews right before Christmas to save money on holiday bonuses. He'd tried to bury that ruthlessness when he became a family man, to be the father and husband his family deserved. But they just reminded him why he'd learned to be ruthless in the first place. Because in the end, everyone betrays you. Everyone has a price. Everyone will choose their own comfort over your well-being. His phone buzzed with a text from Felix. Hoffman's got problems. We'll brief you when you land. Bobby smiled for the first time since watching the video. He'd built his empire by understanding that information was power, that leverage was everything, and that patience was the deadliest weapon in any arsenal. His family thought they'd locked him out. They had no idea they'd just locked themselves in. Chapter 3. The Lawyer's Call. Bobby spent his first night in the penthouse suite at the Phoenix Biltmore, a luxury hotel he partially owned through one of his holding companies. He could have stayed anywhere. He owned properties throughout the city, but he wanted to be visible, wanted his absence from the family home to be noticed by their social circle. He ordered room service and spent the evening on his laptop, reviewing the financial architecture he'd built over 2 decades. Every major asset was protected. Every potential vulnerability had been addressed years ago. The house his family thought they controlled was owned by Castellano Property Holdings LLC, where Bobby was the sole decision-maker. Their personal bank accounts were tied to business credit lines that he could terminate with a phone call. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd structured everything this way to protect his family from potential business liabilities, lawsuits, or economic downturns. He'd wanted to ensure that even if his company faced catastrophic loss, Linda and the children would be secure. Instead, his protective measures had become the bars of their own cage. At 7 a.m., Felix Rodriguez arrived with coffee and a thick manila folder. Felix was a lean, sharp-suited man in his 60s who'd built his reputation representing Phoenix's most ruthless businessmen. He'd guided Bobby through every major deal, every hostile negotiation, every legal challenge of the past 20 years. Your wife hired Samantha Cross, Felix said without preamble. She's that feminist lawyer who's been in the news for liberating wives from oppressive marriages. Specializes in community property cases, very aggressive, loves the media attention. Bobby nodded. What's her angle? Emotional abuse, financial control, hostile work environment for Travis. Cross is positioning this as a case of an abused family finally standing up to a tyrant. She's probably already preparing press releases. And Derek Hoffman? Felix's smile was predatory. That's where it gets interesting. He opened the folder, revealing photographs, financial documents, and legal papers. Dr. Derek Hoffman, 52, divorced from his wife Amanda 6 months ago. The divorce was ugly. She accused him of having affairs with patients, using his practice to supply drugs to Beverly Hills socialites, and manipulating wealthy women into unnecessary procedures. Bobby studied the documents. Tell me more about the drug allegations. Nothing proven, but Amanda's lawyer had enough evidence to force a favorable settlement. Hoffman's been very careful since then, but his practice is struggling. Lost several major clients, 3 top nurses quit, and his malpractice insurance costs have skyrocketed. Financial situation? leverage to the eyeballs. The divorce settlement, legal fees, and business losses have him close to bankruptcy. He's been taking on riskier procedures, working with less reputable clients, and there are rumors he's been providing services that aren't exactly medical. Bobby leaned back in his chair. This was what he'd hoped for: leverage. What kind of services? Facial reconstruction for people who don't want to be recognized. Cash only, no records. The kind of work that attracts clients who have good reasons to change their appearance. And Linda doesn't know any of this. Your wife sees a successful Beverly Hills surgeon who drives a Porsche and takes her to expensive restaurants. She has no idea his practice is failing, and he's desperate enough to take money from very dangerous people. Bobby's phone rang. The caller ID showed Samantha Cross, attorney at law. He gestured for Felix to stay quiet and answered. Mr. Castellano, this is Samantha Cross. I represent your wife in this matter. We have a problem. We need to discuss this immediately. Bobby's voice was calm, almost amused. Miss Cross, I'm not sure what problem you're referring to. My family chose to lock me out of what they believe is their home. I'm respecting their wishes by staying away. Mr. Castellano, please don't play games. You know exactly what you've done. The accounts, the credit cards, the house. The house that's owned by my company? The accounts that are tied to my business? The credit cards that I pay for through my corporate holdings? Bobby's tone remained pleasant. I'm confused about what problem you think we have. It was a long pause. Mr. Castellano, cutting off your family's access to money and housing could be considered financial abuse. Ms. Cross, my family declared their independence from me. They informed me I don't have a home anymore. I'm simply respecting their decision to separate their lives from mine. If they want financial independence, I'm happy to provide it. Another pause, longer this time. Bobby could hear papers rustling, probably Linda's voice in the background growing increasingly frantic. Mr. Castellano, we need to meet. Today. I'm a very busy man, Miss Cross, but I'll make time for you at 3 p.m. My office at Castellano Holdings. He hung up before she could respond. Felix was grinning. They didn't expect this. They thought I was just another controlling husband who'd panic when threatened with divorce. They have no idea what they're dealing with. Bobby stood and walked to the window, looking out over the Phoenix skyline. Half the buildings in view had been built or financed through his companies. What's the play? Felix asked. Linda wants a divorce? Fine. We'll give her exactly what she's asking for, and nothing she isn't entitled to. Travis wants to run the company his way? Perfect. We'll see how he handles having no company to run. Emma thinks I'm a toxic patriarch exploiting workers? Excellent. She can learn about exploitation firsthand. And Hoffman. Bobby turned back to Felix, and for a moment, the lawyer saw something in his client's eyes that made him glad they were on the same side. Derek Hoffman thinks he can steal my wife and destroy my family. He's about to learn that some men are too dangerous to cross. What do you need from me? File a countersuit. Alienation of affection against Hoffman, parental alienation against Linda for turning the children against me, and breach of fiduciary duty against Travis for his actions while employed by my company. Make it public, make it ugly, and make sure the media knows exactly what kind of man Linda left me for. Felix made notes. The alienation of affection case will require evidence of the affair. I'll have that by tonight. Marcus is already on it. And the financial aspects. Linda's entitled to half of our marital assets. The house we bought together, the savings we accumulated during marriage, her jewelry, and personal effects. She's welcome to all of it. Bobby's smile was cold. Of course, she'll also be responsible for half of our marital debts, which includes several business loans I've personally guaranteed. Funny how those loans were completely worthless before yesterday, but now that we're divorcing, they've become quite pressing obligations. Felix understood immediately. How pressing? Let's say my wife's half of our marital debts will be approximately $12 million. Give or take. And Travis? Travis is no longer employed by any of my companies. His company car has been repossessed, his corporate credit cards canceled, and his access to our properties revoked. If he wants to run a business, he's welcome to start his own. Emma. Her college tuition was paid through a trust fund that terminates if she shows conduct detrimental to family unity. I'd say participating in a conspiracy to lock me out of my own home qualifies. Felix gathered his papers. I'll have everything filed by end of business today. But Bobby, are you sure you want to go this route? Once we escalate like this, there's no going back. Bobby thought about the video, about 25 years of marriage, ending with his wife holding up new keys like trophies. He thought about his son's smug face, his daughter's righteous expression, their complete certainty that he would simply accept their betrayal. Felix, my family just taught me that love is conditional, loyalty is temporary, and family is just a word people use until they find something better. They want to see who Bobby Castellano really is when you strip away the husband and father. He straightened his tie and picked up his jacket. Let's show them. Chapter 4. The Investigation. By noon, Marcus Chun had delivered what Bobby needed. The former Marine's efficiency was one of the reasons Bobby paid him 6 figures to handle security for Castellano Holdings. The manila envelope Marcus handed him contained enough evidence to end Derek Hoffman's career and send him to prison. Hoffman's been sloppy, Marcus reported, settling into the leather chair across from Bobby's desk. The affair with your wife started 6 months ago, but he's been running his side business for almost 2 years. We've got photos, financial records, and testimony from 3 former clients. Bobby spread the photographs across his desk. Derek and Linda at expensive restaurants, walking hand in hand through Beverly Hills, entering a luxury hotel together. The timestamps showed their affair had been going on during Travis's graduation, during Emma's last visit home, during their anniversary dinner 3 months ago, when Linda had seemed so loving and attentive. The other business? Bobby asked. Hoffman's been providing facial reconstruction for clients who pay cash and don't ask for records. Nothing technically illegal about changing someone's appearance, but his client list reads like a who's who of people fleeing prosecution. Marcus handed him a second set of photos. These were taken outside his private clinic over the past month. Bobby recognized 2 faces from FBI wanted posters, another from a news report about embezzlement charges. He's desperate. Gets worse. His ex-wife was right about the drug allegations. Hoffman's been supplying prescription painkillers and anxiety medications to Beverly Hills socialites, mostly bored housewives looking for an escape. We've got video of transactions, records of prescriptions that don't match medical files, and a paper trail showing he's been buying medication from questionable sources. Evidence that would hold up in court, enough to destroy him. But Bobby, there's something else. Marcus's expression grew serious. One of his recent clients is Vincent Torino. Bobby looked up sharply. Vincent Torino was the son of Carlo Torino, a mob boss who'd been laundering money through Phoenix real estate for decades. Vincent had been indicted on racketeering charges 6 months ago and had disappeared before trial. Hoffman did work on Torino. Full facial reconstruction 3 weeks ago. Cash payment, no records. If the FBI connects Hoffman to Torino's disappearance, your wife's boyfriend is looking at accessory charges for aiding a fugitive. Bobby leaned back in his chair, processing the implications. This was better than he'd hoped. Not only could he destroy Hoffman personally and professionally, but he could do it in a way that would terrify Linda and make her realize exactly what kind of man she'd chosen over her husband. Where's Hoffman now? Beverly Hills. Your wife is with him. They're at his apartment, planning their next move. Probably trying to figure out how to access money that no longer exists. Bobby's intercom buzzed. His secretary announced that Samantha Cross had arrived for their 3 p.m. meeting. Perfect timing. Marcus, I need you to do something for me. Contact the FBI field office in Los Angeles. Ask to speak with Agent Sarah Powell. She's been hunting Vincent Torino for 6 months. Tell her you have information about someone who helped Torino alter his appearance. You want me to turn Hoffman in? Not yet. I want them to start watching him. When this all comes out, I want it to look like the FBI discovered Hoffman's illegal activities through their own investigation, not through a tip from a vengeful ex-husband. Marcus nodded and left. 2 minutes later, Samantha Cross entered Bobby's office flanked by Linda and Travis. Emma had apparently decided not to attend, probably considering this beneath her newfound social consciousness. Samantha Cross was exactly what Bobby had expected, a sharp-suited woman in her 40s with the aggressive confidence of someone who'd built her career on high-profile cases. Linda looked nervous, her usual composure cracking as she avoided Bobby's eyes. Travis appeared sullen and defiant, apparently still believing he held some kind of advantage. "Mr. Castellano," Cross began, "we need to discuss a reasonable resolution to this situation. Your actions in cutting off your family's access to funds and housing are legally questionable and morally reprehensible." Bobby gestured for them to sit. "Ms. Cross, I'm confused. My understanding is that my family has chosen to separate from me. They've locked me out of what they believe is their home and informed me that I'm no longer welcome in their lives. I'm simply respecting their decision." "Dad, don't be ridiculous," Travis interrupted. "You can't just cut us off completely. We have rights." Bobby looked at his son with mild interest. "Rights? Travis, you're 23 years old. You have the right to food, shelter, and clothing that you provide for yourself. You have a right to employment that you earn through your own efforts. You have the right to housing that you pay for with your own money. I'm not sure what other rights you think you're entitled to." Linda finally spoke, her voice shaky. "Bobby, this is insane. We can't access our bank accounts, the credit cards aren't working, and you've locked us out of everything. This isn't what we wanted." "Linda, this is exactly what you wanted. You wanted independence from me. You wanted me out of your life. You wanted to make your own decisions without my input." Bobby's voice remained calm, professional. "I'm giving you exactly what you asked for." Cross leaned forward. "Mr. Castellano, marital assets belong to both spouses. You can't simply appropriate everything because you're angry." "Ms. Cross, I haven't appropriated anything. Every asset my wife believes she has access to is either owned by my company or secured by business loans that I've personally guaranteed. As of yesterday, when my family declared their independence, those personal guarantees became individual debts." He slid a document across the desk. "This is a financial statement prepared by my accountant. It shows our current marital assets and debts. As you can see, we have approximately $800,000 in assets and $14 million in debts." Cross studied the document, her confidence wavering. "These business loans were personally guaranteed by both myself and my wife when we obtained them. That's standard practice for family-owned businesses." Linda signed every document, understanding that we were both equally responsible for repayment. Linda's face went white. "Bobby, those loans were for business purposes. The bank told us they were just formalities. The bank told us that business assets would secure the loans as long as the business remained profitable. Unfortunately, as of this morning, Castellano Holdings has experienced significant financial difficulties that make loan repayment uncertain." Travis was beginning to understand. "What kind of financial difficulties?" Bobby smiled. "Well, Travis, it turns out that when your most experienced project manager, your head of security, and your financial oversight team all resign on the same day, potential investors get nervous. Several major contracts have been suspended pending review, and our insurance carriers are questioning their coverage. Very unfortunate timing. You can't destroy your own company out of spite," Cross said. "I'm not destroying anything, Ms. Cross. I'm simply adjusting our business model in response to changing family circumstances. These things happen in family businesses when family members choose to pursue independent paths." Linda stood abruptly. "Bobby, stop this. Please, we can work this out." "Linda, I'm giving you exactly what you said you wanted. A divorce, independence, freedom from my control. Ms. Cross specializes in liberating women from oppressive marriages. She should be thrilled with how cooperative I'm being." Cross gathered her papers. "Mr. Castellano, this isn't over. We'll be filing for emergency relief, claiming financial abuse and manipulation. Ms. Cross, you're welcome to file whatever you'd like. I'm sure the court will be very interested in reviewing the circumstances that led to this situation, including the reasons why my wife suddenly decided she needed independence." He slid another document across the desk. "These are the divorce papers I'll be filing tomorrow. As you can see, I'm claiming adultery as grounds and seeking full custody of our minor children. Emma's 21, but still financially dependent and attending college on funds provided by me. Funds that were contingent on maintaining family unity." Linda sank back into her chair. Bobby, you can't do this to Emma. She's just a kid. She's an adult who chose to participate in a conspiracy against her father. Actions have consequences, Linda. I thought I'd taught our children that lesson, but apparently they need a refresher course. As Cross and Travis helped to shaken Linda from the office, Bobby called after them. Oh, and Linda? You might want to ask Derek about his recent business ventures. I think you'll find them very enlightening. Chapter 5. The Trap. That evening, Bobby sat in his penthouse suite reviewing the financial reports Marcus had compiled on Derek Hoffman. The plastic surgeon's desperation was even worse than they'd initially discovered. He owed nearly $2 million to various creditors. His malpractice insurance had been canceled, and he was facing investigation by the California Medical Board for unethical practices. The most interesting detail was a loan Hoffman had taken from a private lender 6 months ago, a man named Anthony Marcelli who had connections to organized crime families in Los Angeles. The loan was for $500,000 at 30% interest, with payment due in full within 1 year. Hoffman had 4 months left to repay $650,000, money he clearly didn't have. Bobby's phone rang. Linda's number appeared on the screen. Hello, Linda. Bobby, we need to talk. Please. This has gone too far. Her voice was strained, exhausted. I'm listening. Can we meet? Somewhere private? I want to discuss. I want to work something out. Linda, you've made your position very clear. You want a divorce, you want independence, and you want me out of your life. I'm respecting your wishes. Bobby, please. I know about Derek's problems. I know about his practice, his debts, everything. I made a mistake. Bobby felt a surge of satisfaction. His information had reached her faster than expected. What kind of mistake? I was lonely, Bobby. You work so much, you're so focused on business, and I felt like I didn't matter anymore. Derek made me feel young again, special again. But I never meant for it to go this far. How far did you mean for it to go? A long pause. I never meant to hurt you. I never wanted a divorce. I wanted you to notice me again. Bobby walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. 25 years of marriage, and his wife had orchestrated an elaborate betrayal because she felt neglected. So, this was all a performance? The locks, the video, the lawyer? Derek convinced me that you'd never change unless I showed you I was serious. He said, men, like you only respond to dramatic gestures. The plan was to scare you into couples counseling, into spending more time at home. And Travis and Emma, they were trying to protect me. Derek told them stories about controlling husbands, about financial abuse. They thought they were helping me escape an oppressive situation. Bobby processed this information. His wife had been manipulated by a desperate man who saw her as his path to financial salvation. His children had been turned against him by someone who knew exactly which emotional buttons to push. It didn't excuse their betrayal, but it provided context. Linda, where are you now? At Derek's apartment. He's not the man I thought he was, Bobby. There are people calling, threatening him. He's scared, and now I'm scared too. What kind of people? I don't know. Men with accents, talking about money he owes. Bobby, I think I'm in danger. Bobby closed his eyes, feeling a familiar rage building. His wife had betrayed him, but she was still his wife, the mother of his children, and Derek Hoffman had put her in danger to save his own skin. Linda, listen to me carefully. Pack your things immediately. Leave Derek's apartment and go to the Biltmore. Check in under your maiden name. Don't tell anyone where you're going, not even Derek. Bobby, do it now. We'll talk tomorrow, but right now you need to be somewhere safe. After hanging up, Bobby called Marcus. Change of plans. Linda's in immediate danger. Hoffman's loan shark is probably making moves tonight. What do you want me to do? Keep eyes on Hoffman's apartment. If anyone approaches Linda, intervene. But Bobby, if Hoffman tries to leave with her, stop him. Understood. Bobby's next call was to Felix Rodriguez. Felix, I need you to prepare new documents. Full custody of both children, emergency restraining order against Derek Hoffman, and a motion to freeze all of Linda's assets pending investigation of her involvement in Hoffman's illegal activities. Are you sure about this, Bobby? If Linda's genuinely trying to come home. Felix, my wife spent 6 months planning my destruction. She turned my children against me, tried to steal my property, and put herself in danger with a criminal. Her change of heart now that she's scared doesn't erase what she did. And if she's genuinely remorseful? Bobby thought about the video message, about Travis's smug face, and Linda holding up those keys like trophies. Then she'll have the rest of her life to prove it. But she'll do it from a position where she can never hurt me or my children again. At midnight, Marcus called with an update. Linda left Hoffman's apartment an hour ago. She's at the Biltmore under the name Grayson. But Bobby, you need to know, Hoffman followed her. He's in the lobby, trying to convince her to leave with him. Is she buying it? No. She told him she was done, that she wanted to work things out with you. He's not taking it well. Bobby felt something cold settle in his stomach. How not well? He's drunk, making scenes, talking about how much money he's invested in this relationship. Hotel security is watching him, but they haven't intervened yet. I'm on my way. Bobby drove through the empty Phoenix streets, his mind racing. Everything was falling into place exactly as he'd planned, but now Linda was genuinely in danger. Hoffman was desperate enough to work with criminals, unstable enough to stalk his ex-wife, and drunk enough to do something stupid. When Bobby arrived at the Biltmore, he found Hoffman in the hotel bar, disheveled and ranting to anyone who would listen about ungrateful women and wasted opportunities. Linda was in her room, but hotel security reported that Hoffman had been asking questions about her, trying to find out her room number. Bobby approached the bar. Derek. Hoffman turned, his eyes bloodshot and unfocused. Bobby fucking Castellano, the great man himself. His words were slurred, his expensive suit wrinkled and stained. We need to talk. Talk. Your wife just destroyed my life, and you want to talk. Bobby sat on the adjacent bar stool, signaling the bartender for 2 whiskeys. Derek, let me explain something to you. 6 months ago, you had a failing practice, massive debts, and a reputation in ruins. My wife didn't destroy your life. You did that all by yourself. She was supposed to. Hoffman stopped himself. She was supposed to what? Bring her divorce settlement to help pay your debts? Fund your escape from the people you owe money to? Bobby sipped his whiskey. Tell me, Derek, what was the plan? Marry Linda, move to a non-extradition country, start fresh with her money. Hoffman's silence was answer enough. The problem with your plan, Bobby continued, is that you chose the wrong mark. Linda doesn't have any money. I do. And unlike your previous victims, I don't go down easy. What do you want? Bobby set down his glass and looked directly at Hoffman. I want you to disappear. Tonight. Leave Phoenix, leave California, leave Linda alone forever. Do that, and I might not share what I know about your business with the FBI. You don't know anything. Bobby pulled out his phone and showed Hoffman a photograph. Derek performing surgery on Vincent Torino. The FBI has been looking for Torino for 6 months. They'd be very interested to know who helped him disappear. Hoffman's face went white. You can't prove. I don't have to prove anything. I just have to make one phone call, and Agent Powell will be very motivated to investigate your practice. Even if the charges don't stick, the investigation alone will destroy what's left of your reputation. Bobby stood and placed a business card on the bar. You have until sunrise to leave town. If you're still here tomorrow, or if you ever contact my wife again, I'll make that call. And Derek? The people you owe money to will be very unhappy when they learn the FBI is investigating you. As Bobby walked away, he heard Hoffman order another drink with shaking hands. By morning, the problem of Derek Hoffman would be resolved one way or another. Chapter 6, The Reckoning. Linda was waiting in Bobby's penthouse suite when he returned from the Biltmore. She sat on the leather sofa where they'd spent countless evenings together, looking smaller and more fragile than he'd seen her in years. Her designer clothes were wrinkled, her perfect makeup smeared, and her hands shook as she held a cup of coffee. The hotel manager let you in? Bobby asked, pouring himself a drink. I told him I was your wife, which I guess I still am, technically. Bobby sat across from her, studying the woman he'd loved for 25 years. For now, Bobby, I need you to know that I never meant for any of this to happen. Derek convinced me that you were controlling, that our marriage was unhealthy. He showed me articles about financial abuse, emotional manipulation. He made me believe that I was a victim, and you believed him because it was easier than admitting you were bored. Linda flinched. That's not fair, isn't it? Linda, In 25 years of marriage, have I ever denied you anything? Have I ever controlled your spending, your friendships, your activities? Have I ever told you what to wear, where to go, who to see? No, but have I ever raised a hand to you? Threatened you? Isolated you from your family or friends? No, but you work all the time. You're obsessed with business, with making money, with building the company. I felt like I was married to a corporation, not a man. Bobby set down his drink. I work because I love you, because I love our children. Every deal I close, every building I develop, every dollar I earn, it's all for this family. I wanted to give you the life you grew up with, the security you deserved. I know that now. But Bobby, I was lonely. I felt invisible in my own marriage. So you decided to destroy it. Linda began to cry, tears streaming down her face. I wanted you to fight for me. I wanted you to show me that our marriage mattered more than your business. Derek said that powerful men only change when they're forced to, when they lose something important. Bobby felt a familiar anger rising, but it was different now, colder, more controlled. So this was all a test. 25 years of marriage, and you decided to test whether I loved you enough. I made a mistake. You made a choice. You chose to believe a criminal over your husband. You chose to turn our children against me. You chose to humiliate me, to try to steal my property, to destroy everything we built together. Bobby's voice remained calm, but Linda could see the rage in his eyes. And when your plan backfired, when Derek revealed his true colors, you decided you wanted to come home. Bobby, please. I love you. I've always loved you. I just got confused, manipulated. Linda, do you know what Derek's real plan was? He wasn't trying to save you from an oppressive marriage. He was trying to get access to our money to pay off his gambling debts. The romantic getaways, the declarations of love, the promises of a better life. It was all a con. Linda's face went pale. What do you mean? Bobby showed her the financial reports Marcus had compiled. Derek owes $2 million to people who break legs when they don't get paid. His practice is failing. His ex-wife took half his assets, and he's facing criminal charges. He saw you as his path to financial salvation. Linda studied the documents, her hands shaking. He said he loved me. He said we were meant to be together. He said what you needed to hear. And you believed him because it was more exciting than the boring reality of being married to a man who works hard to provide for his family. That's not. I wasn't looking for excitement. I was looking for attention. For love. Bobby stood and walked to the window. Linda, I gave you attention every day for 25 years. I came home to you every night. I took you on vacations, bought you jewelry, supported your interests and friends. But somewhere along the way, you decided that wasn't enough. You wanted grand gestures, you wanted drama. You wanted to feel like you were in a romance novel instead of a real marriage. I know I made mistakes. You made choices, and choices have consequences. Bobby turned back to face her. Tomorrow morning, Derek will be gone. He's leaving town tonight, and he'll never contact you again. The question is what happens to us. Linda looked up hopefully. Can we try again? Can we go to counseling, work on our marriage? Linda, 3 days ago you locked me out of my own home and told me I didn't belong in your life. You convinced our children to betray me, hired a lawyer to destroy me, and celebrated your independence. Now that you're scared and alone, you want to work on our marriage. I want to come home, Bobby. I want to be your wife again. Bobby sat back down, his expression unreadable. Here's what's going to happen. You can come home, but on my terms. No more independent bank accounts, no more separate activities, no more girls' trips or social events without me. You want to be my wife? Then you'll act like my wife. Linda nodded eagerly. Yes, whatever you want. You'll sign a new prenuptial agreement that protects all current and future assets. If you ever cheat again, ever betray me again, you'll leave with nothing. I understand. Travis and Emma will earn their way back into this family. Travis will start at the bottom of the company, earning minimum wage and proving he can be trusted. Emma will transfer to Arizona State and live at home, where we can monitor her activities and associations. Linda hesitated. Bobby, they're adults. They're children who participated in a conspiracy against their father. They'll prove their loyalty or they'll find their own way in the world. And if I agree to all of this, Bobby studied his wife, This woman who'd shared his bed for 25 years and then tried to destroy him when she got bored. Then we'll try to rebuild our marriage. But Linda, understand this. I will never trust you again. I will never again make myself vulnerable to you. You'll be my wife, but you'll also be under constant supervision. Linda wiped her tears and nodded. I deserve that. I know I deserve that. Do you? Because 3 days ago, you thought you deserved independence and excitement and a fresh start with a younger man. What's to stop you from changing your mind again when the restrictions get tiresome? I love you, Bobby. I've learned my lesson. Bobby looked at his wife and felt something die inside him. The love he'd felt for her, the trust that had anchored their marriage, the belief that their family was sacred, all of it was gone, replaced by cold calculation. We'll see, he said. We'll see. Chapter 7. The Children's Choice. The next morning brought news that Derek Hoffman had been found dead in his Beverly Hills apartment, apparently the victim of a drug overdose. The police investigation would eventually reveal that he'd mixed prescription painkillers with alcohol, a combination that had proven fatal. There would be no mention of the loan sharks, no investigation into his criminal clients, and no connection to Vincent Torino. Bobby received the news with the same emotional detachment he'd shown when learning about a business competitor's bankruptcy. Derek Hoffman had been a problem that required solving, and now the problem was solved. Whether the solution had been suicide, accident, or something more deliberate was irrelevant. Linda took the news harder than Bobby had expected. Despite everything, she'd apparently developed genuine feelings for the man who'd manipulated her. She spent the morning crying, oscillating between grief and guilt, occasionally asking Bobby if he thought Derek's death was her fault. Derek made his own choices, Bobby told her. He chose to involve himself with dangerous people, chose to manipulate you, chose to put himself in an impossible situation. Whatever happened to him was the consequence of those choices. By afternoon, Travis and Emma had arrived at the penthouse suite, summoned by their mother's frantic phone calls about Derek's death and their father's ultimatum. Both looked shocked and subdued, their confidence from 3 days earlier completely evaporated. Emma spoke first, her voice small and uncertain. Dad, we heard about Dr. Hoffman. Mom's really upset. Your mother will recover, Bobby replied. The question is whether you two have learned anything from this experience. Travis shifted uncomfortably. Dad, we made a mistake. We thought we were helping Mom, but we didn't understand the situation. You understood perfectly, Travis. You thought your mother was being abused, so you helped her escape. You thought I was a tyrant, so you rebelled against me. You thought you could run my company better than I could, so you tried to force me out. Bobby's voice was calm, almost conversational. The problem isn't that you misunderstood, it's that you were wrong. Emma stepped forward. Dad, we're sorry. We know we hurt you, and we want to make it right. Bobby studied his daughter, this young woman he'd raised and educated and loved unconditionally for 21 years. Emma, what exactly are you sorry for? For believing I was an abusive husband? For participating in a plan to steal my property? For turning against your father based on the word of a man you'd never met? All of it. We were wrong about everything. Were you? Or are you just sorry that your plan didn't work? Bobby walked to the window, his back to his children. 3 days ago, you both stood in my living room and told me I was toxic, controlling, and unwelcome in your lives. You celebrated locking me out of my own home. What's changed since then? Travis found his voice. We learned the truth about Derek, about what he was really after. So, if Derek had been a good man who genuinely loved your mother, you'd still be happy to see me destroyed? The question hung in the air, unanswered. Bobby turned back to face them. Here's what I think happened. You both got caught up in your mother's midlife crisis and convinced yourselves you were heroes in a story about rescuing an oppressed woman from a terrible man. You never questioned whether the story was true because it made you feel important, righteous, superior. Dad, Travis, you've worked for my company for 6 months. In that time, have you ever seen me mistreat an employee? Have you ever witnessed me being abusive or controlling with anyone? Travis looked down. No, but you wanted to believe it because it justified your resentment about my expectations, about the standards I set for you, about the work ethic I tried to teach you. Bobby shifted his attention to Emma. And you, With your social justice education, we're thrilled to have a real-life example of patriarchal oppression to fight against. It didn't matter that you'd never seen evidence of abuse. The narrative fit your worldview, so it must be true. Emma began to cry. Dad, we made a mistake. Can't you forgive us? Bobby felt something twist in his chest at his daughter's tears, but he pushed the feeling down. Emma, forgiveness is for accidents and honest mistakes. What you did was deliberate and calculated. You planned it, you executed it, and you celebrated it. We were trying to help Mom. You were trying to feel good about yourselves. Helping Mom was just the excuse. Bobby sat down, his expression hardening. But here's the real problem. Even now, facing the consequences of your choices, you're still making excuses. You're sorry you got caught, sorry your plan backfired, sorry Derek turned out to be a criminal. But you're not sorry for betraying your father. Travis stepped forward. That's not true. Dad, we love you. We want our family back. You want the benefits of being my children without the responsibilities. You want the trust fund without the loyalty, the inheritance without the respect, the lifestyle without the work. Bobby stood and walked to his desk, pulling out 2 documents. I'm willing to give you both a chance to prove me wrong. Travis, you can come back to work for the company. You'll start as a general laborer, earning minimum wage, with no special treatment, because you're my son. You'll work 40 hours a week, follow orders without question, and prove that you can be trusted with small responsibilities before being given larger ones. He handed Travis the employment contract. If you can do that for 2 years without complaint, I'll consider promoting you to an entry-level management position. Travis scanned the contract, his face showing his dismay. Dad, this is basically a punishment. It's an opportunity to prove you're more than an entitled child who thinks success should be handed to him. Bobby turned to Emma. Emma, you could transfer to Arizona State and live at home. You'll study business or engineering, something useful, and you'll work part-time for one of my companies to learn about the real world. No more social justice nonsense. No more protests. No more causes that teach you to resent success and hard work. Emma shook her head. Dad, you can't control what I study or believe in. I'm an adult. You're an adult who's been living on my money while learning to hate everything I stand for. If you want to continue being my daughter, you'll learn to respect what I've built instead of trying to tear it down. Both children looked stricken, the reality of their situation finally sinking in. What if we say no? Travis asked quietly. Then you'll have exactly what you said you wanted 3 days ago, independence from me. You'll pay your own bills, fund your own education, and make your own way in the world. I'll wish you luck and hope you find happiness. Emma was crying openly now. Dad, please. We made a mistake, but we're still your children. Bobby felt the familiar rage building again, but kept his voice level. My children would never have betrayed me the way you did. My children would have trusted me, believed in me, stood by me when I was attacked. You're strangers who happen to share my DNA. Linda, who had been silent throughout the conversation, finally spoke. Bobby, they're just kids. They made mistakes, but they don't deserve. Linda, these kids are 23 and 21 years old. They're old enough to vote, old enough to serve in the military, old enough to get married and have children of their own. They're old enough to be held accountable for their choices. He looked back at Travis and Emma. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. Accept my terms and prove you're worthy of being part of this family, or maintain your independence and live with the consequences. As his children left the penthouse, both looking shell-shocked and uncertain, Bobby felt no satisfaction in their pain. But he also felt no inclination to comfort them. They had chosen their path when they stood in his living room and declared him unwelcome in their lives. Now, they would learn what it meant to live with the consequences of betraying Bobby Castellano. Chapter 8. The New Order. 3 weeks later, Bobby stood in his office watching Travis operate a jackhammer on the construction site below. His son wore a hard hat and safety vest like any other laborer, his expensive college education useless for the task of breaking up concrete. Travis had signed the employment contract after 2 days of living in a cheap motel and discovering how expensive independence could be. Emma had made the same choice, transferring to Arizona State and moving back in her childhood bedroom. She'd been required to sign a behavioral contract that restricted her social media activity, limited her political involvement, and required her to maintain a B+ average in her new business program. Linda sat across from Bobby's desk, reviewing the guest list for a charity gala they were hosting next month. To outside observers, they appear to be a reconciled couple working together on social obligations. The reality was more complex. The Hendersons declined, Linda reported. Margaret said they had a prior commitment, but I think they're avoiding us because of the divorce rumors. The divorce rumors that you created when you hired Samantha Cross and made a public spectacle of our marriage problems, Bobby replied, without looking up from his financial reports. Linda flinched. Even 3 weeks later, Bobby's tone remained coldly polite whenever he spoke to her. He'd kept his word about allowing her to come home, but their marriage existed now only as a business arrangement and public facade. Bobby, how long are you going to punish me? I'm not punishing you, Linda. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. We sleep in separate bedrooms. We barely speak except about business or the children. And you treat me like an employee rather than your wife. Bobby finally looked up at her. Linda, 3 weeks ago you were planning to divorce me and move to California with another man. The fact that those plans fell through doesn't erase what you intended to do. I told you I was confused, manipulated. You were selfish and bored and willing to destroy our family for the promise of excitement. Bobby returned his attention to his reports. I've given you what you said you wanted when you came crawling back, a chance to rebuild our marriage. But rebuilding trust takes time. How much time? I don't know. Maybe years. Maybe never. Linda's eyes filled with tears, but she'd learned not to expect comfort from her husband. The warm, loving man she'd been married to for 25 years was gone, replaced by someone who treated her with the same cold calculation he applied to business deals. Marcus Chun entered the office with his daily security briefing. Mrs. Castellano, he nodded politely to Linda before turning to Bobby. The Henderson Foundation called about next month's gala. They want to make sure the event is still happening after the recent family difficulties. Tell them it's proceeding as planned, Bobby replied. In fact, I want this to be the biggest charity event Phoenix has seen all year. I want everyone to see that the Castellano family is stronger than ever. After Marcus left, Linda looked at her husband with confusion. Why is this gala so important to you? You've never cared about charity events before. I care about perception, Linda. Right now, people are talking about our marriage problems, speculating about our family's stability, questioning whether I'm losing control of my personal life. The gala will show them that Bobby Castellano doesn't lose. Not in business, not in family matters, not in anything. So this is about your ego? Bobby's expression hardened. This is about power, Linda. In my world, weakness is fatal. The moment people think you're vulnerable, they start circling like sharks. Your little affair and family rebellion created the perception that I could be manipulated, that my own family didn't respect me. And the gala will fix that. The gala will show Phoenix's elite that my family is united, loyal, and completely under my control. Travis will be there in a tuxedo, grateful for the opportunity to work for my company. Emma will be there as a dutiful daughter, proud of her father's success. And you'll be there as my devoted wife, radiating happiness and contentment. Linda felt a chill run down her spine. And if we don't play our parts convincingly, then you'll discover what real consequences look like. That evening, Bobby had dinner with Travis at the penthouse. His son arrived straight from the construction site, still covered in dust and sweat, his hands rough and calloused from 3 weeks of manual labor. How are you adjusting to the work? Bobby asked as they ate. It's hard, Travis admitted. Harder than I expected. The other guys don't know I'm your son, so they treat me like any other new hire. No special treatment, no easy assignments. Good. What have you learned? Travis considered the question. That I don't know anything about construction. That college didn't prepare me for real work. That the guys on the crew have more practical skills than I'll ever have. Bobby nodded approvingly. What else? That running a company like yours takes more than just knowing about business theory. You have to understand every aspect of the operation, every job, every challenge the workers face. And Travis met his father's eyes. That I was an arrogant kid who thought he could do your job better than you without ever learning how to do it all. Bobby felt a flicker of satisfaction. Are you enjoying the work? No, Travis said honestly. It's exhausting, it's dangerous, and it pays terrible money. But I'm learning things they don't teach in business school. And the guys on my crew, they work harder than anyone I knew in college. Those men have families to support, mortgages to pay, bills that don't wait for convenient timing. They can't afford to show up late, call in sick, or give less than their best effort every day. I'm starting to understand that. Travis paused. Dad, I want to apologize again. Not because I'm working construction now, but because I finally understand what I did to you. Bobby waited for him to continue. You built this company from nothing. You worked for 30 years to create something that could provide for our family, employ hundreds of people, and contribute to the community. And I tried to take it away from you because I thought I knew better. What you tried to take wasn't just my company, Travis. You tried to take my reputation, my standing in the community, my identity as a father and husband. You tried to destroy everything I've worked for because you thought it would be fun to rebel against authority. Travis nodded. I know that now. And I know that saying I'm sorry isn't enough. What would be enough? Proving that I can be trusted. Proving that I can work as hard as you do. That I can earn what I have instead of expecting it to be given to me. Bobby studied his son, looking for signs of manipulation or false sincerity. But Travis's exhaustion seemed genuine. His humility earned rather than performed. We'll see, Bobby said finally. Talk is cheap, Travis. Show me through your actions over the next 2 years whether you're worthy of being my son and heir. As Travis left, Bobby felt cautiously optimistic for the first time since this ordeal began. Perhaps his children could be salvaged after all. Perhaps they could learn the lessons he'd been trying to teach them their entire lives. But forgiveness would still require more than apologies and hard work. It would require absolute loyalty, unwavering respect, and proof that they would never again be capable of betraying the man who'd given them everything. Chapter 9. The Phoenix Rises. The Phoenix Metropolitan Children's Foundation Gala was held at the Arizona Biltmore, the same hotel where Bobby had confronted Derek Hoffman 6 weeks earlier. The ballroom was filled with Phoenix's most influential families, politicians, business leaders, and socialites, all eager to see how the Castellano family would present themselves after weeks of scandal and speculation. Bobby arrived in a custom-tailored tuxedo, Linda resplendent in a diamond necklace he'd given her for their 20th anniversary. To the casual observer, they looked like the perfect power couple, radiating success and unity. Only Bobby knew that Linda had practiced her smile for hours in front of a mirror, terrified of making any mistake that might embarrass her husband. Travis and Emma flanked their parents, both impeccably dressed and perfectly behaved. Travis's hands were still calloused from construction work, but his manner was respectful and mature in a way it had never been before. Emma had abandoned her college activist wardrobe for elegant designer wear, her radical political views carefully hidden beneath social pleasantries. The evening proceeded exactly as Bobby had orchestrated. He gave a speech about family values, community responsibility, and the importance of supporting Phoenix's most vulnerable children. The irony wasn't lost on him. He was being celebrated for his charitable work while systematically destroying anyone who had betrayed him. During the cocktail hour, Margaret Henderson approached Linda with barely concealed curiosity. Linda, you look wonderful. I heard there were some difficulties recently. Linda's smile never wavered. Just some family stress, Margaret. You know how it is when children reach adulthood and start making their own decisions. But we worked everything out. We're stronger than ever. And the rumors about divorce proceedings? Completely false. Bobby and I have been married for 25 years, and we plan to be married for 25 more. Linda's response was perfectly rehearsed, delivering exactly the message Bobby wanted circulated. Across the room, Bobby was engaged in a similar conversation with Frank Morrison, a competitor who'd been hoping to acquire some of Castellano Holdings' contracts during the family crisis. Bobby, good to see you looking so well, Morrison said. There was some concern in the business community about your personal situation. My personal situation is perfect, Frank. My family is united, my business is thriving, and my future has never looked brighter. Bobby's smile was genuinely confident. In fact, I'm announcing some major expansions next month. We're breaking ground on 3 new developments and acquiring 2 additional companies. Morrison's disappointment was visible. Like many of Bobby's competitors, he'd been hoping the family drama would create business opportunities. As the evening progressed, Bobby watched his family perform their roles flawlessly. Linda charmed potential clients and maintained perfect composure. Travis discussed his learning experience in construction work as if it had been his idea, describing how much he'd grown from working alongside the company's crews. Emma spoke eloquently about her business studies and her excitement about joining the family company after graduation. To everyone present, the Castellanos appeared to be the embodiment of family success and unity. The highlight of the evening came when Bobby was presented with the Foundation's Humanitarian Award, recognizing his contributions to children's charities throughout Phoenix. As he stood at the podium accepting the crystal sculpture, he looked out at the assembled crowd and felt a deep satisfaction. "This award belongs not just to me, but to my entire family," he said. "My wife, Linda, who has supported every charitable effort we've undertaken. My son, Travis, who is learning the value of hard work and community service. My daughter, Emma, who reminds us that the next generation will carry forward our commitment to helping others." The applause was thunderous. Several people later commented that they'd never seen the Castellano family look happier or more united. After the event, as they rode home in Bobby's Bentley, the family sat in silence. The performance was over and reality had returned. "Did I do okay?" Linda asked quietly. "You were perfect," Bobby replied. "Everyone there now believes our marriage is solid and our family is stronger than ever." Emma spoke from the back seat. "Dad, I know this was all for show, but it felt good to be part of family again, even if it's not real." Bobby caught her eyes in the rearview mirror. "Emma, it is real. It's just different than before. Before, you were children who took my love and support for granted. Now you're adults who understand that being part of this family requires effort, loyalty, and respect." Travis nodded. "Dad, I want you to know that tonight wasn't just an act for me. I am grateful for the opportunity to work for the company. I am proud to be your son, and I do want to earn my place in this family." Bobby felt something shift inside him. Not forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps the beginning of genuine hope. "Travis, actions speak louder than words. But you've made a good start." As they pulled into the driveway of their Scottsdale mansion, the same house where this crisis had begun 6 weeks earlier, Bobby reflected on how completely the situation had been resolved. Derek Hoffman was dead, his threat to the family eliminated permanently. Linda had been thoroughly humbled and brought back under Bobby's control, her independence revealed as the dangerous illusion it had always been. Travis and Emma were learning valuable lessons about loyalty, respect, and the consequences of betrayal. Most importantly, Bobby had demonstrated to everyone in Phoenix that he was not a man to be crossed, manipulated, or underestimated. His business competitors had learned that attacking him during perceived weakness would only make him stronger. His social peers had learned that the Castellano family was unshakable. His employees had learned that loyalty was rewarded and betrayal was punished. But the most important lesson had been taught to his own family. Bobby Castellano was not a man who forgave easily, who forgot betrayals, or who allowed second chances without demanding complete submission in return. As they entered the house, their house, the one he'd always owned despite their attempt to lock him out, Bobby looked at his wife and children and felt satisfied with the new order he'd established. Linda would never again mistake his love for weakness or his devotion for vulnerability. Travis and Emma would never again take their privileges for granted or believe they could challenge his authority without consequences. They were his family again, but on his terms, under his control, with full understanding of what happened to people who betrayed Bobby Castellano. In the end, he'd given them exactly what they'd claimed to want: independence. They'd learned its true cost and chosen to return to the safety of his protection and provision. But they would never again be naive enough to believe that safety came without a price, or that Bobby's love came without conditions. The foundation of their family had been rebuilt, stronger than before, but on bedrock rather than trust. And Bobby Castellano had proven, once again, that he was a man who always won in the end. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there. Subscribe to Infidelity Tales Lab for more stories. Now, let's begin this one. Chapter 1. The Weight of Ordinary Days. Grady Massey had always prided himself on noticing details. As a high school history teacher, he'd spent 15 years reading between the lines of student excuses and administrative doublespeak. But somehow, he'd missed the signs in his own home. The marriage had been good once. 8 years ago, Christine Cobb had walked into his life like a perfectly wrapped gift, beautiful, charming, attentive. She worked in pharmaceutical sales, traveled often, and made twice his salary. Grady never minded. He loved his job, loved shaping young minds, loved the quiet satisfaction of a well-taught lesson. But lately, something fell off. It started small. Christine's phone, once casually left on counters, now lived in her purse. Her overnight work trips doubled. She'd started going to the gym at odd hours, coming home smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't hers. When Grady suggested they try for the baby they'd always talked about, she'd snapped at him for the first time in their marriage. "Not now, Grady. My career is at a critical point." Then came the stomach problems. 3 months ago, he'd started experiencing persistent nausea, headaches, and fatigue. His doctor ran tests. Everything came back inconclusive. "Probably stress," the doctor said. "Try to relax more." Grady tried. He cut back on coffee, ate better, started taking vitamins Christine helpfully bought for him. Nothing changed. If anything, the symptoms worsened after she returned from her trips. Last Tuesday, Christine's laptop froze during a video call. She'd cursed, slammed it shut, and asked if Grady could take it to that IT guy at his school. She'd said it with casual indifference, already walking away to pack for another trip. "His name is Lionel," Grady had said to her retreating back. Lionel Hoover had worked at Roosevelt High for a decade, managing everything from the ancient server systems to teachers' personal tech problems. He was a quiet man with sharp eyes and a photographic memory. He and his wife Frida had attended Grady's wedding, and their kids were in Grady's AP history class. Friday morning, Grady dropped off the laptop before first period. "Should be quick," Lionel said, examining the sleek device. "Probably just needs a cleaning and reboot. I'll call you when it's done." Grady taught 3 classes that day: the French Revolution, the Treaty of Versailles, and the fall of the Roman Empire. All lessons about how the powerful always believed they were invincible until the moment they weren't. At 2:15 p.m., during his planning period, his desk phone rang. "Grady," Lionel's voice was tight. "Come to my office. Now, don't mention it to anyone." The IT office was in the basement, a windowless room filled with humming servers and the blue glow of monitors. When Grady arrived, Lionel was standing by the door. His usually calm face looked gray. "Close it," Lionel said. Grady shut the door. "What's wrong?" Lionel didn't answer. He walked to his desk, typed something, then turned the laptop screen toward Grady. "I need you to listen to me very carefully," Lionel said, his voice low and urgent. "You need to file for divorce. Today. Right now. Don't go home first. Don't call Christine. Don't give her any warning whatsoever." Grady's stomach dropped. An affair. It had to be an affair. He'd suspected, but hoped. "It's not just an affair," Lionel said, reading his face. "Grady, I found these." He clicked a folder. Messages filled the screen. Grady leaned closer, reading. His blood turned to ice. "From Christine to T. The new dosage is working. He's getting weaker. Doctor says stress. LOL. Maybe 2 more months. From T to Christine. Good. Don't rush it. We did it too fast with Richard and people ask questions. Slow is clean. From Christine to T. Policy is $750,000. We split it, then Mexico like we planned. God, I can't wait to be done with this boring life." Grady's vision blurred. He gripped the desk. "There's more," Lionel said quietly. "A lot more. Plans, timelines, research on untraceable poisons." And Grady, There are files about a Richard Cobb, Christine's first husband. He died 5 years ago. Accidental carbon monoxide poisoning. The room spun. Grady sank into a chair. I've already made copies, Lionel continued. Everything is on 3 encrypted drives. One for you, one for the police, one for my safe. You need to get to a lawyer before she knows you know. Grady looked up at his friend. She's been poisoning me. Yes. She murdered her first husband. It looks that way. And she's planning to kill me. Lionel's jaw tightened. Not if we stop her first. But Grady, if she even suspects, she might accelerate the timeline. These people are dangerous. This Terrell Munoz, I found his background. He has 2 assault charges that were dropped, and he was questioned in another suspicious death 3 years ago. Grady's hand shook. Not from fear, from rage. Pure, cold, calculating rage. His brilliant wife, his charming Christine, was a murderer. She'd lain beside him, smiled at him, kissed him, all while planning his death. I'm not running, Grady said, his voice steady despite the fury. I'm not hiding. Grady. No. He looked at Lionel. She thinks I'm weak. Boring. Easy to manipulate. She thinks she's smarter than everyone. A dark smile crossed his face. I teach history, Lionel. I know how this story ends for people like her. They always make a mistake. They always get too confident. What are you going to do? Grady stood. I'm going to give her exactly what she wants. And then I'm going to destroy her. Chapter 2. The game begins. Grady didn't go home that night. Using cash, he checked into a hotel across town and sat on the bed, staring at the encrypted drive Lionel had given him. His laptop was open, displaying folders full of Christine's messages, research files, and financial documents. He read everything. Christine Massey, née Cobb, born in Baltimore to working-class parents. Dropped out of college twice. Married Richard Cobb at 25. Richard, a successful pharmaceutical rep with a $500,000 life insurance policy. Richard died at 32 of accidental carbon monoxide exposure in his garage. Christine collected the insurance, invested wisely, and moved to a new city. 3 years later, she met Grady at a friend's wedding. Sweet, beautiful, just vulnerable enough to seem real. Grady had fallen hard. They married within a year. She'd taken out a $750,000 policy on him 6 months into their marriage. Just being responsible, she'd said. Grady had signed without question. Terrell Munoz was harder to trace. The messages revealed he was Christine's high school boyfriend who'd reconnected with her through social media. He'd done time for assault, worked sporadically as a personal trainer, and had expensive tastes. The messages between them went back 4 years, meaning they'd started planning before Richard Cobb's death. Grady's hands clenched. They'd probably killed Richard together. The poisoning research was meticulous. Thallium sulfate they'd settled on. Odorless, tasteless, and in small doses over months, nearly impossible to detect. Symptoms mimicked stress-related illness. Most doctors never tested for it. By the time someone thought to check, the victim was usually already dead or too far gone to save. She'd been putting it in his vitamins. Grady looked at the bottle on his nightstand. The vitamins he'd brought with him out of habit. His stomach turned. He threw them in the trash. His phone buzzed. Christine, where are you? Everything okay? He stared at the message. The caring wife, worried about her husband. He wanted to type what he really thought. Wanted to scream at her, expose her, watch her panic. Instead, he breathed and thought like a chess player. Emotion was the enemy of strategy. Sorry, grab a hotel. Not feeling well, didn't want to drive. Be home tomorrow. Oh, honey, do you need me to come get you? Which hotel? She wanted to know where he was. Probably to tell Terrell. Probably to make sure he was actually sick and not suspicious. No, I'm fine. Just need rest. See you tomorrow. He turned off his phone. At 8 a.m. Saturday, Grady met with Vernon McConnell, a divorce attorney Lionel had recommended. Vernon was a bulldog, late 50s, gray mustache, and a reputation for taking down wealthy spouses who thought they were untouchable. This is attempted murder, Vernon said after reviewing the evidence. We need to go to the police immediately. Not yet, Grady said. Mr. Massey, hear me out. Grady leaned forward. If we go to police now with digital evidence, she gets a lawyer claims the laptop was hacked or the messages are fake. Terrell backs her up. They've done this before and gotten away with it. We need them to act. We need them to incriminate themselves beyond any doubt. Vernon studied him. What are you proposing? I keep pretending everything is normal. Let them think the poison is working. Let them get comfortable and sloppy. Meanwhile, we document everything, every interaction, every dose, every meeting they have. We build a case so airtight they can't wiggle out. That's dangerous. If they decide to accelerate, I stop taking anything she gives me. I'll dump the vitamins, avoid any food or drink she prepares. I'll get checked by a doctor immediately and start chelation therapy to remove what's already in my system. Grady's eyes were hard, but I need time. Time to prove Richard's death wasn't an accident. Time to connect Terrell to other crimes. These people have been getting away with murder. I want to make sure they never hurt anyone again. Vernon was quiet for a long moment. You're playing a very dangerous game. I know. And you're sure you can pull this off? Pretend everything is normal while your wife tries to kill you. Grady smiled grimly. I'm a teacher. I've been pretending to be interested in teenagers' excuses for 15 years. I can handle one lying murderer. Vernon's mustache twitched. All right, but I'm documenting everything. And if I think you're in immediate danger, I'm calling the police whether you like it or not. Fair enough. They spent the next 3 hours crafting a plan. Vernon would hire a private investigator to tail Christine and Terrell, document their meetings, and dig into Richard Cobb's death. Grady would install hidden cameras in his house, wear a recording device, and keep detailed logs. They'd also coordinate with Lionel to monitor Christine's laptop and phone remotely. By the time Grady left Vernon's office, he had a strategy. Now he just needed to execute it. He went home at noon. Christine's car was in the driveway. He found her in the kitchen, and the moment she saw him, concern flooded her face. Grady, God, you look awful. Are you feeling any better? He let himself sway slightly. A little, still pretty weak. She rushed over, touching his forehead. Her hand was cool, gentle. The hand of a killer. You're warm. Have you eaten? Not much appetite. Let me make you something light. And you should take your vitamins. She reached for the bottle on the counter. A new one, he noted. She'd replaced the one he took to the hotel. Thanks. He took the bottle, then made a show of clutching his stomach. Actually, maybe after I rest. Feeling nauseous again. Of course. Go lie down. I'll check on you soon. Grady went to the bedroom and closed the door. He dumped the new vitamins in his pocket, then lay on the bed. Through the door, he heard Christine on the phone, voice low. He's getting worse. No. He went to a hotel, but came back. I don't know, maybe a few more weeks. I can't just kill him, T. It has to look natural. Grady smiled at the ceiling. Let her think she was winning. Let them both get comfortable. The real game was just beginning. Chapter 3. Pieces in Position. Over the next 2 weeks, Grady became a different man. By day, he was the weakening husband, complaining of headaches and exhaustion, letting Christine fuss over him while secretly discarding every pill and supplement she offered. By night, he was a strategist, reviewing surveillance footage, coordinating with Vernon's investigator, and piecing together the full scope of Christine's crimes. The private investigator, a sharp woman named Linda Hansen, worked fast. She tailed Christine to 3 separate meetings with Terrell Munoz at a motel outside town. She photographed them together, documented Christine withdrawing large cash sums, and traced Terrell's movements to a storage unit registered under a fake name. Want to know what's in the unit? Linda asked during a meeting in Vernon's office. What? Grady asked. Documents. IDs with different names, fake passports, and some paperwork connected to another death. A woman named Stella Lester in Arizona 3 years ago. She was dating Terrell. Died of a heart condition at 31. Healthy, no prior issues. Sound familiar? Grady's blood ran cold. How many people have they killed? At least 3 that I can prove. Probably more. Linda slid a folder across the table. Richard Cobb, Stella Lester, and they were in contact with a Roy Gross in Nevada who died in a suspicious hiking accident. Roy's sister never believed it was an accident. She's been trying to get the case reopened for years. Vernon leaned back. This is bigger than attempted murder. This is a serial killing team. Grady stared at the photos. Christine and Terrell, smiling, planning, destroying lives without remorse. Rage bubbled up, but he forced it down. Emotion was the enemy. How do we prove it? He asked. We need Richard's body exhumed, Vernon said. If we can prove thallium poisoning, we can reopen his case. Combined with the laptop evidence, Christine's financial records showing large cash withdrawals before each death, and the storage unit contents, we can build a pattern. And we need them to make a mistake, Linda added. They're careful, but they're also arrogant. Your wife thinks you're dying quietly. She's already planning her next life. I found emails about property in Mexico, booked under her maiden name. Grady nodded slowly. An idea was forming. What if we gave them a reason to rush? What do you mean? Vernon asked. They're planning to wait another month or two. Let the poison do its work so my death looks natural. But what if I suddenly got a windfall? What if the stakes got higher? Linda's eyes narrowed. You think they'd get impatient? I know they would. Greed is their weakness. Grady pulled out his phone and showed them a text chain with his principal, Roosevelt Goodwin. The school board just approved a grant I applied for, $200,000 for a new history program. The board wants to make a big announcement, maybe even a news story about the innovative teacher who secured funding. Vernon caught on. If Christine thinks you're about to become locally famous, that you'll be under more scrutiny, and if she thinks the life insurance might increase because of the grant, because of my higher profile, Grady's smile was cold. She'll panic. She'll rush. And rushing people make mistakes. It's risky, Linda warned. If they panic, they might try something more direct. That's what I'm counting on. Right now, we have evidence of intent, but not action. We need them to move, to do something overt that we can document and prove beyond doubt. Grady's voice was steady. And I have a plan for that too. He laid it out. The grand announcement would happen in 3 days at a school assembly. Grady would mention casually to Christine that the board was suggesting he increase his life insurance given his new valuable status to the district. He'd make her think the payout could double. Meanwhile, Vernon would arrange for Richard Cobb's exhumation and expedited toxicology. Linda would increase surveillance. And Grady would install additional cameras and recording devices throughout the house, including in his own food and drinks, to catch Christine in the act. If she tries to give me a large dose, thinking she needs to finish this quickly, we'll have video evidence, Grady explained. And if she or Terrell try something more direct, an accident, we'll be ready for that too. You're using yourself as bait, Vernon said. I'm a teacher. I've broken up fights, dealt with angry parents, survived school board meetings. Grady's eyes were hard as flint. I can handle 2 murderers who think I'm too weak and stupid to see them coming. The plan was set. Grady went home that night to find Christine cooking dinner, something she rarely did anymore. The smell of garlic and wine filled the kitchen. You're up, she said brightly. I made your favorite. Chicken piccata. Smells amazing. He watched her plate the food, watched her hand linger near his glass of wine. Actually, I have good news. It might help with my mood. Oh, she brought the plates to the table, eyes curious. I got the grant. The big one. $200,000 for the program. He smiled, watching her face. Roosevelt says they might do a press release, maybe even get local news involved. He thinks it could put the school on the map. Christine's smile flickered, just for a second. But Grady saw it. The calculation, the concern. That's wonderful, honey, she said, voice warm. But her eyes were distant, already planning. They ate. Grady pushed his food around, occasionally taking small bites, making sure Christine saw him eating. When she got up to get dessert, he quickly swapped their wine glasses. Later, after she'd gone to bed, claiming exhaustion, he dumped his plate down the disposal and sent Vernon a text. She's rattled. It's working. The next morning, Christine was on her phone constantly. Grady pretended to sleep while she whispered urgently in the bathroom. We need to move it up? I don't care, figure out. No, I'm thinking 2 weeks, maybe less. That afternoon, Linda texted, Terrell just purchased a used car. Cash. Registered to a fake name. They're planning something. And that evening, Vernon called, exhumation approved. Richard's body will be tested next week. Everything was falling into place. Grady stood in his study, looking at the chessboard he'd set up months ago, a game he played against himself on quiet evenings. He'd always loved chess. The patience, the strategy, the way a series of small moves could trap an opponent who thought they were winning. Christine thought she was 3 moves from checkmate. She didn't realize she'd been in Grady's trap for 2 weeks. And now it was time to spring it. Chapter 4. The Closing Net. The assembly was Tuesday morning. Roosevelt Goodwin stood at the podium in the packed gymnasium, hundreds of students and staff watching as he announced the historic grant. When he called Grady to the stage, the applause was genuine. His students cheered. His colleagues smiled. Christine sat in the back row, her smile plastic. Mr. Massey represents everything we value at Roosevelt High, the principal said, clapping Grady on the shoulder. Dedication, innovation, and a real commitment to our students' futures. This grant will fund field trips to historical sites, bring in guest speakers, and create a digital archive. And the school board has asked me to announce that due to Mr. Massey's increased value to our program, they're recommending additional benefits, including an enhanced insurance package. Grady saw Christine's face go pale. After the assembly, teachers congratulated him. Students high-fived him in the halls. But Grady's attention was on his phone, where Linda was texting real-time updates. Christine left immediately after assembly, meeting Terrell at usual spot. They're arguing. Terrell looks agitated. She's crying. He's on his phone. They just left separately. She's heading to a pharmacy. Grady's heart rate picked up. A pharmacy. She was buying something. Something to accelerate the timeline. He taught his afternoon classes on autopilot, his mind racing through scenarios. By the time he got home, he'd prepared himself for anything. Christine was in the kitchen again, baking. Chocolate chip cookies, his mother's recipe, one she'd only made twice in their entire marriage. Thought you'd want comfort food after your big day, she said, kissing his cheek. Her perfume was strong, probably to mask something. You're sweet. He watched her pull the cookies from the oven. They looked perfect. They smelled delicious. They were probably lethal. I have to run to the store, she said, untying her apron. Forgot milk. Eat while they're warm. I'll be back in 20 minutes. The moment her car pulled out, Grady moved. He photographed the cookies from every angle, then carefully placed 3 in evidence bags. The rest he fed to the garbage disposal. He replaced them with cookies from a package he'd hidden in his car. When Christine returned, she found him at the table, a half-eaten cookie on a plate. Good, she asked, watching him intently. Perfect, he smiled, just like Mom used to make. That night, he threw up dramatically, actually just water, but Christine didn't know that. She found him on the bathroom floor, pale and shaking. Oh God, Grady, this is worse. We need to get you to the hospital. No, he gasped. Just need rest. Probably that stomach bug going around school. Are you sure? Please. I hate hospitals. I'll be fine by morning. She hesitated, then nodded. But he saw the satisfaction in her eyes. She thought the increased dose was working. The next morning, Grady called in sick. Christine left for a work meeting, and Linda picked her up immediately. She's not going to work. She's meeting Terrell at the storage unit. Grady met Linda there. They watched from a distance as Christine and Terrell loaded 2 large duffel bags into Terrell's new car. What's in the bags? Grady asked. Linda snapped photos with a telephoto lens. If I had to guess, passports, cash, and their exit strategy. They're getting ready to run. Richard's results come back tomorrow, Grady said. Once we have proof he was murdered, this whole thing unravels. They might not wait that long. Your wife thinks you could die any day now. She's preparing to be the grieving widow who needs to get away to heal. Linda lowered her camera. You need to be careful. If they think you're onto them, they won't. Because tomorrow night, I'm going to give them exactly what they want. Grady explained his plan. Linda's eyes widened. That's insane. It'll work. You could actually die. Not if you're watching. He met her gaze. Trust me. I've got this. That evening, Grady called his sister Rochelle Cannon, who lived 3 states away. She was a nurse, sharp and practical. He'd already told her everything. Are you absolutely sure about this? She asked. I need her on record. I need proof she wants me dead, in her own words. Fine. I'm flying in tomorrow. If anything goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. Just be ready. Thursday afternoon, Vernon called. Richard's results came back. Massive thallium poisoning. Levels consistent with months of exposure. The ME is recommending the case be reopened as homicide. How long until police move? Could be a few days. They're coordinating with the DA, gathering all evidence. Too long. We need to end this now. Grady's voice was firm. Tonight. Everything happens tonight. He went home and found Christine packing a suitcase. What's going on? He asked. She jumped. Oh, just organizing. My trip next week. You're going away again? Just for a few days. But honey, you look terrible. Maybe we should get you checked out. I'm really worried. Actually, I think you're right. I'll make an appointment tomorrow. He swayed, gripping the doorframe. But tonight, let's just have a nice dinner. Together. Like old times. Her eyes lit up with something predatory. That sounds perfect. I'll cook. No. He smiled weakly. Let me order us something. Your favorite. That Italian place you love. He ordered delivery and made sure to intercept it before she could. While Christine showered, he plated the food and set the table. Hidden cameras recorded everything. When they sat down, Christine seemed almost giddy. To your success, she said, raising her wine glass. To us, Grady replied. He took a small sip and watched her drink deeply. They ate. They talked about his grant, her work, their future. All lies, all performance. But Grady was the better actor. As the evening wore on, he let his words slur slightly. He accidentally knocked over his water glass. He complained of dizziness. Maybe I should lie down, he said. Yes, absolutely. Christine helped him to the bedroom, her hands gentle. Murderous hands. Christine, he said, looking up at her, if anything happens to me, I just want you to know, you made me so happy. Something flickered in her eyes. Guilt? Regret? No, just satisfaction. Nothing's going to happen to you, she whispered. Just sleep. She kissed his forehead and left. Grady lay in the dark, listening. The moment he heard her bedroom door close, he got up and took the evidence bag from his nightstand, the cookie from 2 nights ago. Laboratory analysis had confirmed concentrated thallium sulfate, enough to kill him if he'd actually eaten it. He texted Linda. Ready? In position. Cameras rolling. Then he called 911. My wife is trying to kill me, he said calmly. I have evidence. She's poisoned me, and she's planning to flee tonight. I need police at my address immediately, and I need an ambulance. I'm going to pretend to be dying to get a confession. Chapter 5. The Long Con. Grady had spent weeks planning this moment. Every detail mattered. Every variable accounted for. He'd learned that from teaching. Preparation was the difference between chaos and control. At 9:47 p.m., he began groaning loudly. Christine's door opened. Footsteps in the hall, quick and light. Grady? She appeared in his doorway, backlit from the hall. Are you okay? Can't breathe. He clutched his chest, thrashing on the bed. Something's wrong. She rushed over, but not to help. He saw her check his pulse, efficient and clinical. She wasn't panicking. She was checking if he was dying properly. Hold on, she said, pulling out her phone. But she didn't call 911. She texted someone. Terrell, probably. Please, Grady gasped. Help. You're going to be fine, she said, but her voice was distant. She was thinking, calculating. Just breathe. I'll get help. She left the room. Through the crack in the door, he heard her on the phone. It's happening. I don't know, maybe an hour? No, I'll call 911 in a few minutes, make it look good. Yes, I'm sure. Just be ready to pick me up tomorrow. Grady recorded every word on the device hidden in his shirt. Then he heard something else. A car door. 2 car doors. His heart raced, but not from the fake medical emergency. The police were early. Suddenly, the bedroom lights blazed on. Christine stood in the doorway, but her expression had changed. She looked confused, then terrified, as voices echoed from downstairs. Police! We have a warrant. Her eyes snapped to Grady, who sat up calmly, no longer gasping. What? She started. It's over, Christine, he said quietly. The color drained from her face. She bolted for the window, but 2 officers were already coming up the stairs. She turned back to Grady, eyes wild. You can't. There's no proof. There's all the proof in the world. Grady stood, steady and strong. Your laptop. Your messages with Terrell. The storage unit. the thallium in my system, and in those cookies you baked. Richard's exhumation showing the same poison. Video of you slipping things into my food. Audio of you planning my death. And let's not forget Stella Lester and Roy Gross. Christine's face crumpled. You weren't supposed to. You were weak, stupid, easy to manipulate. Grady's voice was ice. You underestimated me. They all do. The police entered the room. Christine Massey, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and suspicion of multiple homicides. As they cuffed her, she looked at Grady with something like disbelief. How long have you known? Since the day I took your laptop to Lionel. You got careless, Christine. Probably because you thought I was too boring to notice. Too in love to question. Too weak to fight back. You bastard, she spat. You let me think. You pretended. Yes, I did. Because that's what you did to me for 8 years. The difference is, I'm not a murderer. They let her downstairs. Grady followed, watching as they put her in the back of a police cruiser. Through the window, Christine stared at him, and for a moment he saw her as she really was, not beautiful or charming, just hollow. Mr. Massey? Detective Haywood Santos approached. He'd been part of the coordinated operation. We've arrested Terrell Munoz as well. Caught him trying to board a flight to Tijuana with fake documents and $80,000 in cash. What about the other victims? We're opening investigations into Richard Cobb, Stella Lester, and Roy Gross. With the evidence you provided, we're confident we can prove a pattern. Your wife and Mr. Munoz are looking at life sentences. Multiple life sentences. Grady nodded. Justice. Finally. For Richard, for Stella, for Roy. For all the lives Christine and Terrell had destroyed. Linda Hansen appeared at his side. You did good. Stupid but good. Thanks for having my back. That's what you pay me for. She smiled. Though for the record, I still think you're crazy for using yourself as bait. It had to be airtight. They had to incriminate themselves completely. He looked at the police cruiser. People like her always think they're the smartest in the room. They never consider that the boring teacher might be 3 steps ahead. Vernon McConnell arrived minutes later, and they spent the next 2 hours at the police station, giving statements, providing evidence, coordinating with prosecutors. By midnight, the case against Christine and Terrell was rock solid. When Grady finally left the station, he found his sister Rochelle waiting in the parking lot. You're an idiot, she said, hugging him hard. I know. She could have killed you. She tried. I'm just better at chess than she thought. Rochelle pulled back, studying his face. Are you okay? Really? Was he? His wife had tried to murder him. She'd never loved him, just seen him as a paycheck and a victim. 8 years of lies, manipulation, and slow death. But he'd won. He'd survived. And more importantly, he'd stopped her from killing anyone else. I'm getting there, he said honestly. Ask me again in a year. Fair enough. She linked her arm through his. Come on, you're staying at my hotel tonight. No arguments. As they drove away, Grady looked back at the police station one last time. Somewhere inside, Christine was realizing her perfect plan had crumbled, that her boring, weak husband had outplayed her completely. He smiled. It was grim satisfaction, but it was something. Tomorrow, he'd start to rebuild. Tonight, he'd won. Chapter 6, Unraveling Threads. The next 3 weeks were a blur of legal proceedings, media attention, and revelations. The case against Christine Massey and Terrell Munoz grew stronger every day, and with it came a flood of information that painted an even darker picture than Grady had imagined. Richard Cobb's exhumed remains confirmed massive thallium poisoning. His family, who'd always suspected something was wrong, finally had answers. His sister called Grady personally to thank him. We knew, she said, voice breaking. We told the police something was off about Christine, but they said there was no evidence. Thank you for giving Richard justice. Stella Lester's case in Arizona was reopened. Terrell had been her personal trainer, and they'd been dating for 6 months before her sudden death. Her bank accounts had been empty days before she died. Terrell had been questioned but released due to lack of evidence. Roy Gross in Nevada. His hiking accident was being reinvestigated. He'd been a wealthy software developer who'd met Christine at a conference. They dated briefly. 3 weeks later, He fell from a cliff during a solo hike. Christine had been out of state at the time, but investigators now believe Terrell had done the physical work while Christine established her alibi. Then came a fourth victim, one Grady hadn't known about. Detective Santos called him on a Thursday morning. We found evidence of another one. Antone Knight, Florida, 7 years ago. Christine knew him from college. He died in a house fire. She was the beneficiary of a $100,000 policy. Jesus, Grady breathed. How many people did they kill? We're still digging, but it's looking like at least 4, possibly more. These two have been at this for nearly a decade. The story broke nationally. Teacher outsmarts Black Widow, killer wife, screamed one headline. Husband's brilliant trap catches serial killer couple, read another. Grady refused most interview requests. He didn't want fame, he wanted closure. But he did agree to one, a long-form piece by a true crime journalist named Leslie Lucas who'd covered the Richard Cobb case years ago. What made you realize you could catch them? Leslie asked during the interview. Grady thought carefully. I teach history. I spend every day explaining how empires fall, how the powerful make mistakes, how arrogance leads to destruction. Christine and Terrell thought they were invincible because they'd gotten away with it before. But the pattern was always there. They just needed someone to see it and be patient enough to prove it. Were you afraid? Every day. But I was angrier than I was afraid. These people destroyed lives without remorse. I couldn't let them do it again. What happens now? Now, I heal. I rebuild. And I make sure they never get the chance to hurt anyone else. The trial was set for 3 months out. Both Christine and Terrell faced multiple counts of murder and attempted murder across 4 states. Their lawyers tried to negotiate plea deals, but prosecutors weren't interested. The evidence was overwhelming. Christine's family reached out, her mother sobbing, apologizing, claiming she'd never known. Grady wasn't sure if he believed her, but he accepted the apology with grace. Some burdens weren't his to carry. Meanwhile, Grady's life slowly returned to something resembling normal. He went back to teaching. His students, at first awkward and unsure how to act around him, eventually relaxed when they realized he was still the same Mr. Massey, maybe a little quieter, maybe a little sharper, but fundamentally unchanged. Lionel Hoover stopped by his classroom one afternoon, closing the door behind him. "How are you holding up?" Lionel asked. "Better than expected." Grady gestured to the chair across from his desk. "I owe you everything, you know. If you hadn't found those files, you would have found them eventually. You're too smart not to have noticed something. Maybe, but you gave me time. Time to plan, time to build the case. You saved my life." Lionel nodded. "What you did was risky, but it was also brilliant. You didn't just save yourself. You got justice for people who'd been forgotten." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Lionel said, "Frida and I are having dinner this weekend. You should come. No talk about the case, no heavy conversations. Just food and bad jokes." Grady smiled. "I'd like that." That weekend, surrounded by friends who'd supported him through the darkest time of his life, Grady felt something he hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not complete, not perfect, but real. On Monday, Vernon McConnell called with an update. The prosecution is confident. They're going for 4 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of attempted murder, and multiple conspiracy charges. Christine and Terrell are looking at life without parole, possibly multiple consecutive life sentences. "Good," Grady said simply. "There's something else. Roy Gross's sister wants to meet you. She's been fighting for years to prove her brother's death wasn't an accident. She says you gave her hope." Grady agreed. The next week, he met Kelly Russell at a coffee shop. She was in her 40s, fierce eyes, and a determined jaw. "My brother was one of the smartest people I knew," she said. "Everyone said he just made a stupid mistake hiking alone. But Roy was careful. He'd hiked that trail a dozen times. I knew something was wrong." "I'm sorry for your loss," Grady said. "I'm sorry for yours. The difference is, yours didn't die." Kelly's voice hardened. "You stopped them. You made sure they'd pay. That takes strength most people don't have. Your brother deserved justice. They all did. Thank you." Kelly reached across the table, squeezing his hand. "Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for being smarter than they were." As Grady left the coffee shop, he realized something. He wasn't just surviving. He was rebuilding. And from the ashes of betrayal and murder, he was creating something stronger. The trial would come. Christine and Terrell would face the consequences of their actions. And Grady would be there, not as a victim, but as the man who'd refused to let evil win. He'd played the long game, and he'd won. Chapter 7. The Trial of Monsters. The courthouse in downtown was built like a fortress, gray stone, tall columns, and security checkpoints that reminded everyone justice was serious business. On the first day of the trial, news vans lined the street, reporters jostled for position, and curious onlookers filled every available seat. Grady sat in the front row of the gallery, flanked by Vernon McConnell and Linda Hansen. Across the aisle, families of the other victims gathered. Richard Cobb's sister, Stella Lester's parents, Roy Gross's sister Kelly, and representatives from Antone Knight's family. When Christine Massey was led into the courtroom, a collective gasp rippled through the crowd. She looked smaller somehow, diminished in her orange jumpsuit, dark circles under her eyes. Gone was the polished pharmaceutical saleswoman. This was the real Christine, the predator who'd worn a pretty mask. Terrell Munoz followed, hulking and sullen, his jaw set in defiance. He glared at Grady, who met his gaze without flinching. The prosecution was led by District Attorney Hilton Howell, a veteran prosecutor known for never losing a murder case. He was methodical, precise, and utterly relentless. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Howell began in his opening statement. This is a case about greed, about murder, and about two people who believe they were too smart to get caught. Over the span of nearly a decade, Christine Massey and Terrell Munoz killed at least 4 people, possibly more. They poisoned, they staged accidents, they destroyed families. And they did it for money. Cold, calculated, premeditated murder. For insurance payouts, for bank accounts, for the thrill of getting away with it. He paused, letting his words sink in. But they made one critical mistake. They underestimated Grady Massey, a high school history teacher who refused to be their next victim. Instead, Mr. Massey did what law enforcement couldn't. He gathered evidence, built an airtight case, and stopped these killers in their tracks. This trial will show you exactly how Christine Massey and Terrell Munoz committed their crimes. And it will show you why they must never be free again. Christine's lawyer, a slick defense attorney named Isaiah Cannon, tried a different approach. The prosecution wants you to believe my client is some kind of mastermind serial killer, he said, pacing before the jury. But where's the proof? Digital messages that could be fabricated? Circumstantial evidence? My client is a successful businesswoman who made the mistake of having a relationship with the wrong man. Terrell Munoz, the real criminal here. Christine Massey is a victim herself, manipulated by a dangerous man who convinced her to go along with his schemes. It was a desperate strategy. Throw Terrell under the bus and hope the jury bought that Christine was just a pawn. But Grady knew it wouldn't work. The evidence was too strong. Over the next 2 weeks, the prosecution presented a devastating case. Dr. Eddie Kirk, the forensic pathologist who'd examined Richard Cobb's remains, testified about the massive levels of thallium found in his system. This wasn't accidental exposure. This was systematic poisoning over months. Lionel Hoover, the IT specialist, explained how he'd discovered the incriminating messages on Christine's laptop. The conversations were detailed, methodical. They discussed dosages, timelines, and how to avoid detection. This was clearly planned. Linda Hansen presented surveillance footage showing Christine and Terrell meeting repeatedly, transferring cash, and loading duffel bags into cars. They were preparing to flee the country the day they were arrested. Vernon McConnell read aloud the messages between Christine and Terrell, their cold calculation chilling the courtroom. Richard was too easy. We need to be smarter with the next one. Grady is perfect, quiet, trusting, no family nearby. And the policy is bigger. I'm bored already. How much longer? Patience, baby. The longer we wait, the cleaner it looks. The jury looked horrified. Several wiped tears from their eyes. Then came Grady's testimony. He took the stand calmly, dressed in a simple suit, looking every bit the unassuming teacher Christine had underestimated. Howell walked him through the entire story. The laptop discovery, the shock of learning his wife was poisoning him, the decision to build a case rather than run. "Why didn't you just go to the police immediately?" Howell asked. "Because I knew they'd need more than digital evidence. I'd seen how these cases fall apart when it's just one person's word against another's. I needed Christine and Terrell to incriminate themselves beyond any doubt. I needed to make sure they couldn't hurt anyone else ever again." "Were you afraid?" "Every single day. But fear is temporary. Letting them kill me and move on to their next victim? That would have been unforgivable." Isaiah Cannon cross-examined aggressively, trying to paint Grady as vindictive, manipulative, someone who'd set up his wife. "Isn't it true, Mr. Massey, that you were unhappy in your marriage?" "No, I love my wife, or who I thought she was." "Isn't it true you stood to benefit from these allegations? Media attention, book deals." "I've refused every book deal and most media requests. I don't want attention. I want justice." "Isn't it possible you misinterpreted innocent messages? That you saw what you wanted to see?" Grady looked at the jury, then back at Cannon. "There's nothing innocent about researching how to poison someone. There's nothing innocent about messages saying 2 more months until he's dead. There's nothing innocent about fleeing the country with fake passports. My wife tried to kill me. That's not interpretation. That's fact." The courtroom erupted in applause. The judge gavelled for order, but the point was made. Chapter 8. The Weight of Truth. The most powerful testimony came from the victims' families. Richard Cobb's sister, Ginger Simpson, took the stand with a box of tissues. "I knew something was wrong. Richard called me 2 weeks before he died and said he felt like he was losing his mind. Headaches, fatigue, paranoia. I told him to see a doctor. He said Christine was taking good care of him. Her voice broke. She killed him while pretending to love him, just like she did to Grady." Stella Lester's mother, Darlene Sutton, sobbed through her testimony. "My daughter was healthy, vibrant, only 31. Then she met that man." She pointed at Terrell. 6 months later, she was dead. "Heart condition," they said. "My Stella never had heart problems. Never. And her money was gone. All of it." Roy Gross's sister Kelly testified about her years of fighting to prove her brother's death wasn't an accident. Roy was an expert hiker. The idea that he just fell is absurd. But no one would listen, until Mr. Massey proved there was a pattern. The evidence against Terrell Munoz was equally damning. The prosecution presented his financial records showing large deposits after each victim's death. They showed his purchase of fake IDs, his research into poisons and accidents, his history of violence. A former cellmate testified that Terrell had bragged about pulling off the perfect crimes and using women to do the dirty work while he stayed clean. Terrell's lawyer, a public defender named Abdul Maldonado, tried to argue his client was just Christine's lackey, following orders. But the evidence showed Terrell was an active, willing participant, possibly even the mastermind. The final piece of evidence was the cookies, the ones Christine had baked for Grady with enough thallium to kill him. Dr. Eddie Kirk testified about the toxicology. If Mr. Massey had eaten even one of these cookies, he would likely be dead within hours. This was not a gradual poisoning attempt. This was attempted murder with a massive, lethal dose. Christine's face went white. Terrell stared at the table. After 3 weeks of testimony, closing arguments began. Hilton Howell addressed the jury one final time. "You've heard the evidence. You've seen the messages, the surveillance, the forensics. Christine Massey and Terrell Munoz are serial killers who murdered at least 4 people and attempted to murder a 5th. They showed no remorse, no hesitation, no humanity. They destroyed families for money. They planned, they executed, they tried to flee. The only reason they're sitting in this courtroom instead of enjoying their blood money in Mexico is because one man, Grady Massey, was smart enough, brave enough, and determined enough to stop them. Do your duty. Find them guilty on all counts. Make sure they never harm anyone again." Isaiah Cannon made his final appeal. Yes, Christine made terrible choices. Yes, she was involved with a dangerous man. But she is not the monster the prosecution describes. She's a woman who got caught up in something she didn't fully understand, manipulated by Terrell Munoz. Show mercy. Consider the possibility that she's a victim too. It rang hollow. The jury deliberated for less than 6 hours. When they returned, the verdict was clear. Guilty, on all counts, for both defendants. Christine collapsed, sobbing. Terrell's face hardened into a mask of rage. The courtroom erupted, families of victims hugging, crying, finally getting the justice they'd fought for. Grady sat quietly, feeling the weight of it all. Relief, grief, exhaustion, and something like peace. Chapter 9. Phoenix Rising. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge, a stern woman named Barbara Weiss, reviewed the case with clinical precision. Then she addressed the defendants. Christine Massey, Terrell Munoz, you have been found guilty of 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted first-degree murder, along with multiple conspiracy charges. The evidence presented in this case is among the most disturbing I've encountered in 30 years on the bench. You killed people who trusted you, loved you, believed in you. You destroyed families. You did it for money, and you showed no remorse. She paused, letting the words settle. This court sentences you, Christine Massey, to 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 25 years for attempted murder. You will die in prison. Christine wailed. Her mother, sitting in the back, covered her face. Terrell Munoz, you received the same, for consecutive life sentences without parole, plus 25 years. You will never walk free again. Terrell finally showed emotion. His face crumpled, and he slumped in his chair. Bailiff, remove the defendants. As they were led away, Christine looked back at Grady one last time. He met her gaze without anger, without satisfaction, just finality. It was over. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, but Grady declined to make statement. He simply stood with the families of the other victims, united in their grief and relief. Kelly Russell hugged him. Thank you. You gave us closure. Ginger Simpson squeezed his hand. Richard would be grateful. We all are. Vernon McConnell clapped him on the shoulder. You did it. You actually did it. We did it, Grady corrected. All of us. That night, Grady sat alone in his house. The house he'd shared with the killer. The house where he'd almost died. It felt different now. Lighter. Like exorcising a ghost. His phone rang. It was Roosevelt Goodwin, his principal. Grady, just wanted to check in. How are you holding up? Better than expected. Tired, but better. Good. Because I have a proposition. The school board wants to create a new program. A course on critical thinking, evidence analysis, and practical logic. They want you to design and teach it. Grady smiled. Based on recent events? Let's call it inspired by. You showed everyone what careful observation and strategic thinking can accomplish. We think students should learn those skills. I'd be honored. 3 months later, Grady stood in front of a new class. Critical analysis and strategic thinking was written on the board behind him. This course, he began, is about patterns. How to see them, how to analyze them, how to respond to them. It's about not accepting things at face value. It's about asking questions, gathering evidence, and thinking 3 steps ahead. The students watched him intently. Some of you know my story. You know what happened to me. But this class isn't about revenge or vigilante justice. It's about the power of observation, the importance of evidence, and the value of patience. Because the truth always emerges if you're smart enough and patient enough to uncover it. One student raised her hand. Mr. Massey, were you scared? Every day, he answered honestly. But fear is just information. It tells you something is wrong. What matters is what you do with that information. Do you regret it? Playing the long game instead of just running. Grady thought for a moment. If I'd run, Christine and Terrell would have found another victim. Someone else would have died. So no, I don't regret it. I'm proud that I had the strength to stop them. The class nodded, absorbing his words. That afternoon, Grady received an unexpected visitor. Lionel Hoover, carrying a gift-wrapped box. What's this? Grady asked. Open it. Inside was a beautiful chess set, the pieces carved from dark and light wood. You're a hell of a chess player, Lionel said. You saw the board, planned your moves, and executed perfectly. Thought you deserved a proper set. Grady smiled, genuinely touched. Thank you. And there's something else. Lionel pulled out an envelope. Richard Cobb's family asked me to give you this. Inside was a check for $50,000 and a letter. Mr. Massey, we received Richard's life insurance payout, which Christine never touched before her arrest. We want you to have some of it. You gave us justice when no one else would. You honored Richard's memory. Please use this to rebuild your life, to find happiness again. You've earned it. The Cobb family. Grady's eyes stung with tears. I can't accept this. You can, and you will. They insisted. So did Stella's family and Roy's sister. They all contributed. Consider it a thank you for stopping serial killers' fund. Lionel, take it. You got a second chance at life. Build something beautiful with it. That weekend, Grady used part of the money to take a trip, the first real vacation he'd had in years. He visited national parks, historical sites, places he'd only taught about but never seen. He breathed fresh air, watched sunsets, and slowly, carefully began to heal. 6 months after the trial, he received a letter from Christine. It had been screened by prison officials, and Vernon had advised him not to read it. But curiosity won. Grady, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know something. I did love you. Maybe not the way I should have, maybe not enough to stop. But there were moments when I wished I could be the person you thought I was. You were always too good for me. Too kind, too trusting, too decent. That's why you were the perfect target. But it's also why you won. You're a better person than I could ever be. I hope you find happiness. Real happiness with someone who deserves you. I'm sorry. Christine. Grady read it twice, then filed it away. He didn't respond. Some doors needed to stay closed. A year after the trial, Grady attended a support group for people who'd survived domestic violence and attempted murder. He met others who'd faced similar betrayals, and he shared his story. The hardest part, he told the group, wasn't the fear or the danger. It was accepting that the person I loved never really existed. Christine was always a predator. I just couldn't see it. A woman nodded. How did you move past that? By realizing it wasn't my fault. I trusted someone I shouldn't have, but that doesn't make me stupid or weak. It makes me human. And I survived. I fought back. I won. That's what matters. The group applauded softly. 18 months after the trial, Grady met someone new. Her name was Anna Blackwell, a librarian at Roosevelt High who'd recently transferred from another district. She was quiet, kind, and had a dry sense of humor that made him laugh. They started with coffee, then dinners, then long walks discussing books and history in life. She knew his story. Everyone did, but she saw him as Grady, not as the teacher who caught the Black Widow killer. I'm not looking for a hero, she said one evening. I'm looking for someone genuine. And you're the most genuine person I've met. I've got baggage, Grady warned. We all do. Yours just made national news. She smiled. I can handle it if you can. 2 years after the trial, Grady stood in front of his class, teaching a lesson on resilience through history. Students filled the room, engaged and curious. After class, one student lingered. Mr. Massey, I just want to say, you inspired me. To be smarter, to pay attention, to not let people take advantage of me. Grady smiled. That's the greatest compliment you could give me. You're kind of a legend, you know. I'm just a teacher who got lucky. No, the student said firmly. You're a teacher who refused to be a victim. That's different. That evening, Grady sat on his porch, a new house in a new neighborhood, far from the memories of Christine. Anna sat beside him, reading a book. The chess set Lionel had given him sat on a small table, a game in progress. His phone buzzed. A news alert. Christine Massey and Terrell Munoz linked to 6th victim. Investigation ongoing. Grady read it, then put the phone away. That chapter of his life was closed. Justice had been served. The monsters were caged. He'd played the long game, and he'd won. Not just survival, but a second chance at life. A real life built on truth and strength and hard-earned wisdom. He looked at Anna, who glanced up and smiled. Penny for your thoughts? She asked. Just grateful, he said simply. For second chances. For justice. For this. She took his hand. Me too. As the sun set, Grady felt something he hadn't felt in years. Genuine peace. The kind that comes from facing darkness and emerging stronger. From being underestimated and proving everyone wrong. From refusing to be a victim. Christine and Terrell were in prison, where they'd spend the rest of their lives. For families at closure. And Grady Massey, the unassuming history teacher they tried to kill, had built a new life from the ashes of their betrayal. He'd won, not with violence or vengeance, but with intelligence, patience, and unwavering determination. And that, he thought as Anna squeezed his hand, was the best victory of all. Epilogue. 5 years later, Grady published a book, The Long Game: How Patience, Evidence, and